So I thought I'd just do a couple of three Google queries first, just to set the scene, and then transition into PDP queries to show you PDP doing exactly the same thing. Right, so first things first, right? So this first query I'm going to put into Google is a typical query that will just find documents, right? So there's no information card, there's no extractive answers or knowledge graph answers or anything in the mix. It's just a set of documents, right? The second query is whereby we are doing a query in the knowledge graph. So we've got a knowledge graph answer at the top. We've also got traditional results, document-based results down the left-hand side, left-hand column. And we know this is a knowledge graph answer because we have this semantic triple at the top, right? So we have the entity of interest, we have the attribute of interest, and then we have the value itself. Those three pieces of information go together to bring out the answer directly from the knowledge graph. This stuff is just the essentially the context around that. Okay, so the third type of interaction that Google has is this one, right? So if we execute this query, then we get an extractive answers response. So this isn't from the knowledge graph, this is from documents, and it's from actually a European Union document giving that answer, right? And Google is highlighting that answer within the European Union document itself, okay? So this is really interesting. Those are the three types: document search, knowledge graph answers, and extractive answers. Okay. When we do these same queries against PDP, then this first interaction, right? We kind of expect this of any search engine. This could be SharePoint, it could be corporate search, it could be some kind of portal search, and we get the documents being returned, just like we did inside of Google. If I do this kind of question though, right, so this is the equivalent of the Tesla address, what is Alan Norton's address, then at this point we're getting a knowledge graph answer returned, right? And again we can see the semantic triple. So we got the entity of interest, the attribute of interest, and then the value of the answer itself. So that's how we know that this response has come from the knowledge graph. What's interesting though is that if I rephrase that query and do something like this, how do I write a letter to Alan Norton and execute that query, we still get a correct response. Now the reason why this is working is that we've put BERT in between this query box and the knowledge graph, right? And BERT understands the context of the query, and it says, yeah, I know the concept of writing a letter. I know who the entity of interest is, which is this Alan Norton guy, and I'm still going to produce this answer for that question, right? So BERT sits in front of the knowledge graph and helps us do this. Neo4j does not do this for us, right? We are doing this with Neo4j, right? So we are enhancing Neo4j's capability by putting BERT into the mix. So a really interesting set of interactions there. Okay, and we get a good response based on a French query. The third interaction that we can have is this idea of extractive answers. This is really interesting, right? So if I go back here, if you remember, this was a full formed question, right? And Google was providing these featured snippets or extractive answers, and it also extracted the answer from the document. Now this just happens to be a European Union document that we found the answer in. So if I copy this and paste it into the PDP search, execute that query, then we are providing the same answer. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're using basically exactly the same technology that Google is using behind the scenes, only this time over the specific content within the corporate firewall, if you like. But we can extend that to other different types of questions, right? So if I ask it maybe this question, what are the ethylene capacity rates in Western Europe, then we get an answer, okay? And that answer is within the context of that. So if I kind of highlight that, then we kind of see why we've produced that answer. If I do this question, when did the DEA stop manufacturing ethylene byproducts? Again, we get the answer. Okay, we get the answer in the context. And if you look at this, we've got ethylene byproducts, and here we have ethylene derivatives, right? Stop manufacturing, we've got production until, okay, and the DEA is obviously the DEA. Okay, so that's why we're highlighting this information. Again, it's Google BERT that's enabling us to do that.